Before we jump into today's episode, I want to tell you about something new and something cool that we just made for you. I wrote it myself. Now, here's my assumption. If you are listening to this podcast, it probably means that you want to build long-term wealth with a rental real estate portfolio, and you would probably like to do it with some creative financing. And as I talk to people who want to do that, I know a lot of questions come up, and I thought there's really no great single resource that really captures the entire picture of how that works. But I have solved that problem because I have written a new PDF that is just for you, and it's called the Step-by-Step Guide to Buying Your First or Next Rental Property Without Relying on a Lender to Approve You for a Loan. Like I said, I wrote this thing myself, and if I do say so myself, it's pretty thorough. And in this, you're going to learn a few things. I'm going to teach you about the 3 key strategies to find and negotiate quality off-market real estate deals that nobody else even knows are for sale. I'm going to teach you about what I call the yeses framework for getting off-market sellers to accept your offers. And then I'm also going to teach you the 11 simple steps that you need to take to get your first or your next deal accepted without needing to go to a bank and apply for a loan and just hope that they give it to you. So if you would like to get this free downloadable PDF, just go to rentalwealthguide.com and you can download it right now. rentalwealthguide.com and get your download of the step-by-step guide to buying your first or next rental property without relying on a lender to approve you for a loan. Now, on with the show. When you're marketing to off-market sellers, you can either pitch your what or you can demonstrate your how. Lowbrow investors offer their what in the first contact, what they do, what they think the seller wants, what they think is attractive to the seller. Instead, we as thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs demonstrate our how. We don't say what we'd like to do. Instead, we demonstrate how we work. In this episode, we discuss this critical distinction and why how is better than what. Let's cue the theme song and we'll get right into it.
Successful real estate investing isn't all about we buy houses and motivated sellers. That's the lowbrow approach, and it gives real estate investing a slimy reputation. Gross. There is a better way, a more genuine human approach. We are thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs, and this is sleaze-free real estate investing.
This is Jeff from the Thoughtful Real Estate Entrepreneur. Welcome to episode number 26 of Sleaze-Free Real Estate Investing, a show for those of us who never felt at home in the we buy houses crowd. In this show, we take a stand against what we call the lowbrow approach, the mainstream guru seminar distress seller approach that ends up giving real estate investors a slimy reputation. Instead, we discuss the strategies, the tactics, and the philosophies that we call the thoughtful way, an enlightened approach to real estate entrepreneurship that focuses on constantly sharpening the sophisticated real estate entrepreneur's 3 most critical capabilities. Number 1, seller relations skills. Number 2, deal architecture skills. And number 3, opportunity vision. When all 3 of these capabilities are successfully in motion, you can make an excellent living today and build long-term wealth while creating value for everybody that you touch along the way. Show notes for today's episode are at www.thoughtfulre.com/E26. Please do yourself and do us a big favor by hitting the subscribe button in your podcast app. Seriously, please, right now, just hit that button if you haven't already. We really, really appreciate it, and it helps other people find us as well. In the last episode, we discussed a few quick takes on several topics related to direct-to-mail marketing to off-market seller leads. So if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it. And we're going to continue our discussion today a bit about marketing as well. And in today's main course, we're going to be discussing what I consider to be a very strategic marketing topic, the difference between selling your what versus selling your how. But first, as always, a little bit of food for thought because, after all, we are thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs, and that means we like to feed our minds with things to think about. And here's what we're thinking about today. Today's food for thought is what I put in my notes as everything is the interview. Right now, here in my business, buying and selling real estate and managing my rental portfolio, we are hiring a new in-house staff property manager position. So, of course, we posted the job ad on the internet and various places, and we've been receiving inquiries and applications. And we're inviting people as a part of this, after screening what they send electronically, to have phone interviews with us and in-person interviews eventually. And we're evaluating candidates, right? I mean, that's what you do. That's pretty obvious. But the important point here is that the evaluation of these candidates doesn't just happen during those interviews. Everything is the interview. Every aspect of our interaction with these people, how they respond, how they show up, how they follow instructions, is a part of the process of us assessing them, not just what they say to the answer of our questions, but everything that they do is part of our evaluation of them. Maya Angelou said something, and then I believe Oprah kind of helped popularize it, but she said, when people show you who they are, believe them. Our interview process is designed to give people a chance to show us who they are, but without them even really knowing that they are showing us who they are. Because, of course, most people think that the interview is the interview, that the interview starts when the interview starts and it's over once the interview is done. And they're on during that time, putting their best foot forward during what seems like the interview. And sometimes it's just the tiniest things, giving a very specific set of instructions to somebody just to see if that person can follow those instructions well. It's one thing for a person to say, I'm very, quote, detail-oriented, and it's another for you to actually get to see if they caught and then followed the details that you gave them. I've got a really good friend who worked at a large consulting firm, and he told me that he remembered that when they had candidates coming in for interviews, they would actually plant their staff members in the waiting room to observe this candidate before the, quote, interview officially began, because they would learn more or as much about that person from how they conducted themselves when they thought nobody was watching. I've got another really good friend who always takes his top candidate for a job out to a nice lunch. And the reason is simply so that he can observe how that person treats the staff at the restaurant, because those actions speak volumes about who that person is. We all know, because our parents told us when we were kids, that actions speak louder than words. And in fact, this is a huge part of branding. If you've ever heard me talk about branding as a pillar of what we do as real estate entrepreneurs. So chances are you're not in the process of interviewing somebody for a hire right now. But let's translate this to our own scenario as buyers of real estate off market. We have to ask ourselves, as our potential sellers are, quote, interviewing us, they are observing us, and everything is the interview. So if that's the case, what are those sellers experiencing from us? Is everything we're doing conveying the message and the experience that we would want them to have? Let's hope so. But if not, this is our chance to make adjustments so that we know that we are delivering the experience we want them to have during the whole process, because everything is the interview. That is today's food for thought, and it's actually tied perfectly and segues nicely into today's main course. All right, so we're moving on to that main course of today's episode, and today's topic on thoughtful real estate entrepreneurship is marketing what you do versus how you do it. This is really a topic of strategic marketing. It's a topic of positioning. It's a topic of branding. So a while back, I posted an image on our Instagram page for the Thoughtful Real Estate Entrepreneur, which, by the way, is Instagram.com/thoughtful real estate. Please give us a follow if you haven't already. It had a bold point of view on this image. It was a quote card, and I knew that not everybody would agree with it, and that's okay. That was actually part of the point. Here's what the graphic quote card said. It said, "Offering in your marketing to pay cash, close fast, and buy as is insanely premature. and it's as lowbrow as it gets. Whew. As they say, those are fighting words. And of course, the intent is not to pick a fight, but the intent is to plant a firm stake in the ground and say, this is what we believe as thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs, and to show what it is that we stand for. And sure enough, not everybody did agree. So one of the comments that I received back on this post was, good luck with that. We'll be over here lowbrow, making it clear what we offer. And I have to step back and hand it to them because they bring up an important point. In business, you need to make it clear what you're offering, right? I mean, that's pretty common sense. But the question is this: what is it that you are really trying to sell them on, that you're trying so hard to make so clear? What this commenter didn't realize is this: you can offer up your what, or you can offer up your how. So let's talk about choosing what versus how and what that even means. Lowbrow investors offer their what in the first contact. It's what they can do, what they think the seller wants, what they're offering specifically, what they think might be an attractive process for the seller. It's like they're selling a service, a what that they are willing to perform. Now, of course, there is a huge and kind of obvious problem with this, in that these investors have absolutely no clue whether this what that they're offering is even remotely relevant to the particular seller that they're sending this letter to. They're basing their what offering on massive, massive assumptions about that seller. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is to do what we as trees do. We convey and we offer our how. We don't say what we'd like to do. Instead, we demonstrate how we work. We show them how it would feel to work with us. We show them how the experience would be and how we tend to approach things. Now, notice that we show them our how. We convey to them our how. I didn't say we tell them our how, did I? No, I went out of my way to say that we show them our how. In other words, we demonstrate it to them. Can you start to see how this connects to our food for thought segment today? We can tell them who we are with words, or we can show them who we are with our actions. And when everything is the interview, we have to show them who we are. And showing is so much more powerful than telling. So why is this such an important distinction? It's really, really important because our how transcends any deal, any financial structure, any closing timeline, any contingencies, any price. This is simply how we do things. Whether the deal is closing in 5 days and it is a quick all cash kind of thing, or it's closing in 6 months with seller financing and a very lengthy repair addendum and anything in between. Our how is a higher level topic than the what. The what is far more specific on a deal by deal basis. Earlier, when I was telling you about that commenter on my post, I said, in business, you need to make it clear what you're offering. But here's a question for you, kind of an interesting question. Is this quote unquote business that we're doing? Well, technically, yes, from our own point of view and the role that real estate plays in our lives, yes, it's a business. But I personally do not want the seller feeling like this is business, as in commerce. Typically, when a person puts their house up for sale, they don't feel like it's business in the commerce sense. They may think of it as business, sort of like paying your credit card bill or finding the right health insurance is business, but it's not business in terms of commerce. Keep in mind, when I am positioning myself with sellers, I am not positioning myself as a property buying service. And I don't recommend that my clients and students do that either. Instead, I'm positioning myself as a guy who wants to buy a property. The lowbrow folks with the We Buy Houses letters, they're positioning themselves as a property buying service. Whether they use those words or not, which they often don't, that is the positioning that they are very clearly implying. Now, why does this matter? And it matters because positioning oneself as a property buying service makes the seller step back, maybe subconsciously, and ask themselves, well, do I really need a service provided to me? Am I in the market for a service? And if the answer is no, which it will be, of course, for a lot of those folks, you've turned those people off because they don't feel like selling a property is hiring a service. Whereas, by contrast, when I position myself as a guy who just wants to buy a property, it makes the seller step back and simply ask themselves, well, would I sell my property? And for most people, the answer is yes, I might consider selling my property given the right conditions. It's focusing on the how and not the what that I can tell you results in me getting a call every week from a seller who says something to the effect of, I get dozens of these letters about my property each year, and you're the first person I've ever called back. Yours just felt different. I hear that all the time. So let's take this and translate this whole topic of what versus how to the tactical ground game of actual direct-to-mail marketing for off-market seller leads for a second. Because I'm not talking about writing a letter with a section and a subheading that says, here's how we work. Instead, I'm talking about writing your letter in such a way that the recipient, right, the seller, comes to their own conclusions about how you work based on the way you've presented yourself. And these conclusions, of course, are the exact conclusions that you want them to come to, right? You've planted those conclusions in their mind through the way you have demonstrated who you are. For instance, if I were to say something like, if now's not the right time to chat with us, no problem. Please just hold on to our letter and let us know when the timing is better. If I said something like that in my letter, the conclusion that I'm helping the seller come to is, well, this Jeff guy is low pressure. He's not in a real big hurry, and he respects that my own timing is what's going to matter most if I'm going to ever consider selling this property. That's them coming to their own conclusions about how we work without me needing to say explicitly, here's how we work. But instead, I showed them how we work by framing my message in a certain way. So when does the what come in, right? When does the offer terms and the parameters and this is the type of financing and this is the type of closing timeline and all of that, when does that stuff come in? Well, let's go back to the comment from the Instagram post for a second. That person said, good luck with that. We'll be over here, Lowbrow, making it clear what we offer. And it really begs the question, doesn't it? When do you need to get clear about exactly what you're offering? Because at some point, you're going to have to make it clear, right? Well, sure, of course. But the timing of when that happens is really important. And it has to be done according to the progression of the relationship that you've got with the seller. What we trees do is that we share our how and let it attract the sellers that how resonates with. We save the what until we have all the insights possible about the seller. That's why in this Instagram post, I said, offering in your marketing to pay cash, close fast, and buy as is insanely premature and as lowbrow as it gets. Because at that point that you're sending the letter, you don't even have close to the necessary insights about your seller to even possibly get to the what. The what ultimately gets presented in the form of a proposal, not an offer, only once we know exactly what will be most relevant to the seller, acceptable to the seller, and helpful to the seller in terms of getting there where they're trying to go. So in sum, if you're direct mail marketing to off-market sellers, and I really hope you are, focus on showing them who you are in the letter, showing them who you are. Don't tell them, demonstrate it through your approach, through your polite, low-pressure messaging, your sincere interest, your positioning as a peer of theirs, not a service provider. Leave the what until much, much later. Thank you for listening to another episode of Sleaze-Free Real Estate Investing. On the next episode, we're going to discuss the key things that we need to try and uncover from the seller. What are the key insights that we're going to need from the seller in order to ultimately be able to talk to them about the what and make a proposal to purchase their piece of real estate? Again, please do yourself a favor, do us a big favor, hit the subscribe button if you have not already in your podcast app. And that way, of course, you'll know exactly when the next episode is released, and it sends a message to iTunes that they should be telling other people like you and like us about this show who would get value from it. Reminder, show notes, including a transcript, are at thoughtfulre.com/E26. And until next time, this is Jeff from The Thoughtful Real Estate Entrepreneur, and I am signing off. Hey there, thoughtful real estate entrepreneur. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to talk to you for just a second about marketing, because you can't buy properties unless you have leads of properties and sellers who are considering selling those properties. As you know, we as thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs love off-market deals. We love face-to-face negotiations with sellers because that's where we know we can absolutely have the best shot at creating a tailored win-win negotiation with the seller. But the question is, where do the leads come from? Well, as we like to do it here at the Thoughtful Real Estate Entrepreneur, it's direct mail letters. But you can't send letters unless you know who to send letters to. That's why I created a free PDF report for you to download right now called How to Get a Targeted, Ready-to-Use List of Quality Off-Market Seller Leads Without Spending a Dime. In this free report, you will learn the 3 simple steps to get the perfect list at no cost to you at all. And let's be honest, because we're thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs, we will also explain to you why this strategy and this technique works the way it does. To get this free report immediately, just go to sellerdirectmail.com and you can grab it. Just enter your email address and we'll email it to you absolutely immediately. Now on to today's episode.
Thanks for listening to Sleaze Free Real Estate Investing. Remember, solve the person to unlock the deal and solve the financing to unlock the profits.